Our pasta's been cooking for about 60 seconds now, and I've been stirring it constantly for that time. And you can see how beautifully they're separated. Look at this. Those noodles are not stuck together. They're moving in the water. They have lots of room to kind of hang out and move around. Now this pasta package right here says it's going to take 11 minutes to cook these. Now, I don't want to necessarily go the whole 11 minutes. There's a lot of different factors that go into how quickly pasta cooks, right? There's your stove, there's how much salt you added to the water, there's the temperature that the water was at when you added it, there's how much water is in the pot, the convections, there's a whole bunch of stuff, right? So that number is a guideline. So it says 11 minutes, but we're going to start checking it at 8 because remember, we're looking for al dente. We're not looking for completely cooked through and super soft. We want a little bit of tooth in the middle. So starting at minute 8, we're going to start pulling out one noodle and cooling it off under cold water so we don't burn ourselves and taking a bite and seeing how it is. And 8 minutes might be a little early, but that's fine, right? Because it's better to start too early than start too late. Like you can see that this pasta is already coming together pretty quickly, so it's definitely not going to take the entire 11 minutes, right? Like use your head. Like you can feel as you stir the pasta, you can feel how hard it is. You can see how much give it has, right? Like when I go like this, it's not like bending like this, right? Like it still very much has some stiffness to it, right? So use your eyes. Use your sense of touch as you're stirring it around, like to see and feel how done the pasta is and how much longer it has to cook. So we're gonna let this cook until 8 minutes is up, and we're gonna be stirring it every 30 to 60 seconds, giving it a good stir like this, because just because it didn't stick initially doesn't mean it won't stick if I walk away and like go pick up my phone and start reading Facebook. So we wanna make sure that we hang out in the kitchen and keep an eye on this. So we'll be back in a few minutes. So our pasta's been cooking for about 8 minutes now, and I can look at it and see that it's still not quite done. Like it's very like, you can see it's still got a little bit of stiffness to it, right? Like this noodle is like kind of like hanging out there like this, but we're gonna try one anyway. So I'm gonna grab my fork and I'm gonna fish one out. Come here, you. Yeah, you can see how it's not like hanging just straight down. It's got kind of like a bowing to it. So we're gonna give this a taste. It's definitely still got some crunch to it. Yeah, that's not good. We're gonna let it cook for a few more minutes. But there's an important thing I wanna point out about boiling pasta. As like it was crunchy enough, I still have pasta stuck in my teeth. Yeah. So if you cover this while you're cooking your pasta, you stand a really good chance of it boiling over and making a whole lot of mess and making a whole lot of noise. So if you're going to like cover your pasta, you need to remember to tip the pot lid like that, right? You'll see here, it's actually like a little open here and a little open here. Like this will actually like hold the heat inside the pan or in the pot where it needs to. It'll let a little heat and steam escape, which is fine. But if you were to close it like that, the starch in here would start to bubble up and create bubbles and tons of bubbles. And then finally they would force themselves out the side of your pan or your pot. And they make a ton of noise when they hit the cooktop. They sizzle and they splatter, and that starch kind of burns onto your cooktop. It's not great. And actually, if you have a gas stove with an actual flame, it can put your flame out. And then it'll just spew gas into your kitchen, which is not great either. So we want to set it just like this, so a little bit of steam escapes, but also to keep it from overflowing. Okay, it's only been like 60 seconds since the last time that I talked to you. And this pasta has cooked substantially in that period of time. So this is where it's just before al dente, right? So it's doing really good, right? It's got a texture, like it's just a little bit toothsome. You can see it's got a little bit more bend and give there. It's not so stiff. It doesn't have such an opinion about what direction it wants to go in. Look at that. It's like it's still got just a little bit. And when we finish this in the sauce, it's going to finish cooking the rest of the way, and it's going to be perfect. But let's check this out. That's perfect. It's just a little bit toothsome. It's soft, but the middle has just like a little bit of tension to it. It's not that big a deal. It's perfectly salted. Oop, come back here. It's not salty. The pasta will never be salty from adding the amount of pasta that I've recommended, or the amount of salt to the water that I've recommended. It will just taste good, right? Like you're not actually like making your pasta noodles salty. You're just making them taste better, right? So if they taste salty, if you're like, kind of salty. You've probably added too much salt. So next time you make pasta, dial it back by like 10 or 15%, just a little. So I'm gonna take this guy and I'm gonna show you, if I pull it apart, you can see it's got a little bit of tension. So I'm pulling on it, pulling on it, pulling on it, and then it breaks. Like it's got a little bit of strength to it still. It's ready to go. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna strain it through one of these guys. This is just your standard pasta strainer. What we're gonna do is we're gonna put this in the sink and we're gonna pour the pasta in the water into the strainer and we're gonna give it a good shake and immediately add it to our sauce, right? Like these noodles are not gonna sit around. They need to be put immediately into a sauce. The sauce can wait. It can sit there for a few minutes while the noodles finish. The noodles will not wait. They get sticky. In the event you do need to let them sit there for a few minutes, shake them every 30 to 45 seconds to make sure they're not sticking. But before we strain them, there's one more really important step. And it is, we need to grab our pasta water. So we've got our little silver measuring cup here. It's metal. We don't want to put glass or plastic in boiling water. So we're going to grab a little bit of pasta cooking water. It's about 1 cup, and we're gonna set that aside. And what we're gonna do with that is we're gonna add it to our sauce, just a little bit at a time. We're gonna add like just a tablespoon or 2 as we're cooking the noodles in the sauce, and then we're gonna add a little bit more water, just tablespoon by tablespoon as necessary. Because if you add too much water, you need to cook off all the extra, otherwise it's gonna water down your sauce. And in the time it takes to like evaporate that excess water and cook down like the sauce so it's not so like wet and just like, runny, your noodles are gonna overcook. So it's really important to add your pasta water little by little, just as you need it. So we're gonna strain this now and add it to our sauce.